I never really paid much attention to independent animation before, but after watching how Hazbin Hotel turned from a pilot on YouTube to an expensive Amazon Prime show, I became interested in indie animation, which seems to be on the rise right now. I started searching for more independent animation and independent creators. And in this video, I've gathered 4 most interesting indie animated pilots that I've come across. These are all short episodes available on YouTube. About some of them you likely heard already, some of them aren't that popular yet. The purpose of this video is to give more exposure to indie animators who work really hard on their projects and deserve attention. So, let's get started. And I would like to start with Port by the Sea. I saw a pretty apt comment which described this short as a child of Pixar's Luca, Over the Garden Wall, and Steven Universe. And I think this is a rather fair description for this cartoon. Port by the Sea has beautiful, soothing sea aesthetics with a gorgeous soundtrack and animation style reminiscent of Steven Universe, but it doesn't exactly try to copy Steven Universe. It remains something unique. The story contains some pretty interesting mythology. All living beings were created by 4 powerful titans. The titan of the ocean named Tiamat one day decided that actually he would like to rule all the mortal beings himself without sharing power with other titans. Tiamat started to drown the world, and the other 3 titans had to sacrifice themselves to stop Tiamat and create a prison for him on the moon. But if the moon breaks, then Tiamat can get out and once again wreak havoc across the world. When the story begins, the moon appears to be shattered, and the ocean is filled with all sorts of bizarre and terrifying creatures. The story follows 2 main protagonists, a brother and a sister named Port and Yumi respectively. They are a couple of sailors who sail the high seas on their boat, looking for mysteries and for adventures. I already mentioned that this cartoon reminds a lot of people of Steven Universe. To me, Port by the Sea feels a lot like Netflix's Hilda. It's got the same atmosphere of coziness and mystery. Honestly, if you're a fan of shows like Hilda, or The Owl House, or Over the Garden Wall, then I think you're gonna enjoy this one too. In any case, Port by the Sea is a high quality animation pilot. Another thing that I'd wanna mention is that I like how it defies our expectations. We see blood dripping from the ceiling and assume some terrible murder occurred upstairs. The owner of the shop must be some terrible monster. But no, the red thing turns out to be just red paint and nothing else. This one I was looking forward to watching the most. I really like the premise. I love everything related to space and space travel, and I must say that Atlas and the Stars did not disappoint me at all. There are only 2 actual complaints about this cartoon that I have. The first is that animation can be sloppy at times. The character movements might look unnatural. In some moments basic animation rules were neglected. But I'm not gonna complain too much since it's an indie animation without a huge Amazon budget. Moreover, it was animated by just one person named Miranda Tony. Animating this pilot probably took a lot of time and was excessively hard labor. I'll be talking about the second complaint a little later. As for the story, the main character is a young woman named Atlas. Since childhood she has been dreaming of traversing space, exploring the universe on her own spacecraft. One day Atlas decided to steal a ship and leave her own planet to seek some fabulous adventures in outer space, far from her home. And of course she gets in trouble and ends up on an unknown planet in a completely different universe. My second complaint is character design. You see, Atlas looks way too old. When I first saw the thumbnail of the pilot, I thought she was in her 40s, at the very least. However, she cannot be in her 40s, since she sounds like this.
All my life, I've known that my place is out there, among the stars. That's why tonight I'm finally getting out of here. I'm gonna steal a starship and leave this life behind, for good.
Atlas sounds like she's in her early 20s, but looks 40. That kinda bothered me throughout the whole pilot episode. But the cartoon in general was really good. The animation style is enjoyable, the atmosphere is enthralling, the soundtrack reminded me of the band called Yes and their album Close to the Edge. It sounds cosmic and gorgeous. This is the most professional animated short in this video. And no surprise, since Godspeed was created by professional animator Ben Bielajak, who worked on Final Space, the show I've heard about before but never cared to even give it a try. Godspeed looks great. It is a sci-fi story about a girl named Iris who gets stuck on a dying planet. She makes friends with a local woman whose kid Iris saved. The only thing I really didn't like is this robot character named Ryan. Ryan is unfortunately voiced by Troy Baker. Why unfortunately? Because Ryan is an unnecessarily obnoxious character who feels absolutely out of place here. Everything in this cartoon is serious and dark, but Ryan feels like he was kidnapped from either Family Guy or some Disney Channel show, and not even a good Disney Channel show like The Owl House or Amphibia. He was kidnapped and then forced to be in this otherwise gorgeous animated short. Godspeed has a lot of potential. It's not just a cool sci-fi story, it also seems to reflect on a Middle Eastern refugee crisis, with the planet dying because of her star being a possible metaphor of endless destructive wars happening in the Middle East without end in sight. And the last cartoon I'll be talking about is called Ramshackle. If you're a fan of stuff like Rick and Morty or Inside Job, for instance, then Ramshackle is something that you might find enjoyable. It has bizarre humor and sometimes intentionally gross animation that seems to heavily rely on the shock effect. It also reminds me of Has-Been Hotel Pilot in terms of animation style, albeit Ramshackle contains less gore and way less profanity compared to Wivsy Pop's project. The story follows a beautiful trio of scraps living in a town called Ramshackle, and they, while searching through bins in the trash, find an abandoned baby which they call Maggot. A trio hears about the baby pageant and decides to bring Maggot to participate to win some beans. And of course things go absolutely wrong along the way. All in all, this one is my least favorite project out of all four I've talked about here. It seems to derive inspiration from adult comedy animation a lot, which, however, is not necessarily a bad sign. The animation looks good and the pop-punk soundtrack also sounds nice. Anyway, all four cartoon pilots were enjoyable, and if you like animation, then I highly recommend checking those projects out. And maybe one of these pilots will turn into a new Has-Been Hotel or new Hell of a Boss. Who knows?